let's do that one more time. Good morning, everybody. It's 11:05 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's Friday, June the 5th, 2020. I'm coming to you live from the VoiceMann Studios in Toronto, Canada. And today, it's episode 65 of MCRAE Live. And the topic is Friday the 13th. What do you want? What do you want to see from your Friday the 13th? That's what I want to know. I am putting it out there to you guys. It is Friday. This is your show, not mine. Well, it's mine, but it's yours. I'm putting it out there. I want to know what you guys want from your Friday the 13th. And, you know, obviously, Friday the 13th has been in legal hell for a few years now. We all know what's going on there between Sean Cunningham and Victor Miller. And just when we thought we were out of the woods, they brought us back in. It's like that George Costanza thing from Seinfeld, right? Just when I was out, they pulled me back in. Obviously, that's referring to a completely different situation, but it's the same kind of thing, right? You know, you thought, guys, really? Oh, come on. And that's what happens. Thank goodness for the Friday the 13th fan films that have been, you know, I mean, it really all started. Not that there haven't been some pretty good ones prior to Never Hike Alone, obviously, but Vince, you know, what Vincent DeSante did with Never Hike Alone is amazing, and obviously that took not just the Friday the 13th fan films, but fan films in general to a new level. So that's sort of where the bar is. That's where the expectation is. It's the reason why myself and Bruce are utilizing all the resources we have here in the film industry in Toronto, and you know, trying to make a Black Christmas fan film of that caliber as well. That's the goal. That's what we're setting ourselves up to give us that best probability. Of course, we do need to still raise that money. And our Indiegogo campaign is coming very, very soon. So thank goodness for Friday the 13th fan films. I feel for you, Friday the 13th Jason heads out there. I'm a Friday the 13th fan. I'm a Friday the 13th fan like, you know, most of us. I mean, I don't think there's anybody here, I don't think, anyway, that hates Friday the 13th. I mean, some of you might. Certainly, most of the movies are garbage. But certainly, I'm a big fan of at least the first 4 films. And I know everybody seems to like Part 6. That's the fan favorite. That's the Elm Street 3 of the Friday the 13th franchise. That's the H2O of the Friday the 13th franchise, because I think H2O tends to be a fan favorite in the Halloween community as well. It's not mine. But so, I mean, you know, but of course, we haven't had a Friday the 13th film now in over 11 years, and since the remake from 2009. And, you know, it's been in this hell zone for a variety of reasons. And thank goodness for these high caliber, high production value Friday the 13th fan films. Never Hike in the Snow is on the way, by the way. I don't want to speak for Vince, but talking to Vince like I have a few times I had him on the show here, of course, talking to him when it comes to Dylan's New Nightmare, because of course he's a producer on that. I get the sense that, like everything, Never Hike in the Snow has been delayed. So now they've shot it. It's currently in post-production. They're still continuing to work hard behind the scenes on that. I have no doubt. But its release will probably not be until, I mean, I stand corrected. I don't want to speak for Vince, but I'm assuming probably this winter at some point is when he's probably thinking about that. Maybe a bit sooner. Who knows, right? It all depends on what happens. But I can certainly tell you that you guys are in for a real treat with this. I can't tell you anything about it, but from what he told me off camera and privately, I mean, it's I'm just giddy like a schoolgirl to see what he's going to dish out for us for that. But other than that, of course, there isn't anything official in the world of Friday the 13th. And I wanted to throw it out to you guys and see what you guys want from your Friday the 13th? What do the fans want? Now, I know we are very Halloween-centric here on the show. I get that, And like I said, I mean, I'm a Friday the 13th fan. I wouldn't consider myself a Friday the 13th expert, per se. I would, if you were coming to me, I would pass you on to the Friday the 13th specialist. I can certainly hold my own, but if there's something like hardcore, like real nerd, fucking sweaty hardcore that needs to like dive into the deep, intricate this and the fucking, I got to send you to the specialist. You know what I mean? So I'd pass you on to Vince. But, I want to know, I mean, what do you guys want to see? And, there's this idea out there that it's not difficult to do a Friday the 13th film. And although that is true, in theory, in terms of, what people mean by that is in terms of the story. You plop a bunch of teenagers at a camp and away you go. You know what I mean? Like I say, it's not that difficult. No, the story, the narrative isn't particularly difficult. But I think what is, I'm not going to say difficult, but where sort of there does take a bit of thinking and a bit of planning is, what do we do with the franchise? I mean, where do we reboot it again? Do we, and if we do, how do we reboot it? Do we reboot it with Pamela Voorhees? Do we try to, mix and mash several films into one? And, what they did with the remake of Friday the 13th, you had the mother in there as well at the beginning, and then, all that kind of stuff. Jason, you had Sackhead, Jason, and Hockey Mask in the same movie. So they were trying to combine things, right? They're trying to speed some things up a little bit. I get it. I understand that. But you guys know me. I understand what Friday the 13th is. I do understand it. It's not even like the original. It's not like the original Halloween. It's not even like the original Elm Street in the sense of that it's not. I mean, it is the first Friday the 13th film, as I've often said, does have that tiny bit of a psychological component to it. But certainly the series it's a bona fide slasher movie. Blood, guts, and gore. Who gives a fuck what's going on? Just, tits and blood, essentially, right? Is the series. And I understand that, but I think there's an opportunity, in my opinion, and I'm going to throw it out to you guys. I think there's an opportunity here to, you can have all that. I mean, you don't want to lose the identity of what a Friday the 13th movie is, but I think there's an opportunity now to class it up a little bit. And when I say by class it up, I don't mean strip it down and take away the identity of what a Friday the 13th movie is, but make a movie that's a little more mature. Make a movie that's very scary, and it's a slasher, but it's not as one-dimensional. And I think if you do that, like, that's one of the things I like about what Vince has done with the Never Hike Alone series. And I say this not as his friend. I say this as, somebody who is objective looking in. He's really thought about this. Like, when I talked to him off camera, and there's not a lot I can say because obviously I want you guys to experience it. But after I had him on the show here, I guess, about 6-8 weeks ago now, we talked for probably another, 25 minutes after we were done the show. We were just shooting the shit about, filmmaking and Never Hike Alone. And it's very clear, and anybody who's ever talked to Vince privately or knows him, he's thought about this. He's not just putting a bunch of people at a lake and away you go. He's really thought about how it connects to everything, the history, the continuity, the linear nature of that continuity. Where do things fall? I can't just throw Tommy in there. Does it make sense? Does this make sense? Does it make sense to have him here? Does it make sense to have him and him here? Now, obviously, he's chosen a specific part of the Friday the 13th timeline to, bring people back in and all that kind of stuff. But he's really thought about this. It's very evident when you talk to him. And I think that's why people are going to really enjoy, I think that's why people enjoy Never Hike in the Snow, Never Hike Alone, will enjoy Never Hike in the Snow, hopefully, right? And then, of course, he's got plans for several more, which is not a spoiler because that was on his campaign. If he's able to complete the 4 or 5 films in this miniseries that he has, he's really thought about this, as it connects. I think that's one of the reasons why fans really like it, or so far. So yes, you can just, hey, it's not that hard. You just throw kids at a camp and away you go. Yes, in principle, I guess you could take that approach. But I think you have an opportunity to, I think fans demand a little bit more than that. Like, I understand the principle of what fans are saying. It's not that hard. Fuck, just throw a can away. Go, I mean, okay, yes, but is that really all you want? Do you want it just hollow and shallow like that? Or do you want them to, like how I see it, I see an opportunity here. Hey, wait a minute. If we're going to make a sequel, then we really got to think about this, like what Vince has done, right? Like, how does this connect to everything? Let's really think about this here. Does it make sense? Are the fans going to really like what we're doing? Okay. Or if you're just going to reboot it from scratch and pretend the other, 10, 11, 12, how many films there are, doesn't exist, that's fine. Okay, great. But then how do we reboot it? What do we let's think about this. And you guys know me, I'm a big fan of Pamela Voorhees. I'm a big fan of that story. I think there's untapped potential there. And I understand that Jason is the brand of the franchise. I understand no Jason, obviously that's blasphemous for some. But I think there is an opportunity to have Pamela Voorhees' story, a bit more of her story told, which is very fascinating to me. I would, as a studio executive, I mean, I'm not one, but if I was one, I would seriously explore that potential, that opportunity. And how do we create, a foundation, a origin story of everything with Pamela and still get people really, really excited about it, make it really good. It's like Batman's arch nemesis is the Joker, right? Everybody wants to see the Joker, right? Nobody would have, if you had found out that Batman's villain in Batman Begins, back when Batman Begins was in development or announced, was going to be Scarecrow, you would be like, unless he's one of your favorite villains, you probably would have that, Scarecrow? Why not make it the Joker? Come on, Joker. Right? But it wasn't. It was Scarecrow in Batman Begins. But Batman Begins was such a great movie. I understand that Batman's the brand identity. It's not exactly the same. But I just mean that there was that moment at the end of the movie where he's got the card and it's the Joker card. And you're like, and obviously, it's coming. I've always thought that would be fascinating to go back, to the early 50s and tell the story of Pamela Voorhees and have Jason as a boy and tell that story and really build that up. Or at least part of that somehow. Include that somewhere in there. I've always found that, again, I'm just spitballing here, right? I'm just sort of just throwing that out there. I haven't divulged into the details, although Tony, Michael, and I, on one of our very first episodes of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit, we did actually hash out a pretty cool idea. You can go and check that out. I think it's episode 2 or 3, or maybe it's the first episode. No, I think it's like 2 or 3 or something like that. It's a couple of years ago now. But I think there's a lot of untapped potential. I guess the point I want you to take away from me talking about all this is that I don't want, yes, you can willy-nilly it. It's for fucking kids at a campsite and put a guy in a mask and away you go. Yes, but I just think that there's opportunity here to really think about this, because we want to make this a series, right? We want to make this a series. We want, it's a business, it's show business. We hope the movie does really well so we can make more and make more money. I mean, that's really what it is, right? So you want to set yourself up with a really strong foundation that's going to give you the best probability of success. And I understand that it's just Friday the 13th. Well, I get that, but you have an opportunity to keep its identity. It's Friday the 13th. You watch the movie, it's like, this is Friday the 13th. But there's a little more to it that makes you go, oh, this is so good. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying, right? So I think that's important. I really do. And what the details are of that, I'm not sure. But if I was a studio executive, I would be very much open to exploring those ideas, talking about Pamela, talking about where does she fit in. If we were rebooting all together, I would talk about that. I would be like, let's explore. Is there an opportunity here? We know that Jason's the brand. We know the hockey mask is the brand. Is there an opportunity here? I would explore all that. And then if it was, a sequel, well, then you're like, well, where do we come in? Right? You know what I mean? I mean, are they going to do what they did with Halloween and negate most of the franchise, but only keep the first, 4 or something like that, right? And they try to convince, Corey Feldman to come back as Tommy Jarvis, or who knows? Or maybe they just they pretend that the first 6 exists, but the rest don't. And they hire Vince to make an official, 90-minute, they get Tom Matthews in there and they do it officially. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe that'll happen too. I don't know. Like where would you go? Like there's several ways you could do it, right? You can reboot it and then what do you do? Right? Or you can do a sequel to one of the films. Where do you do the sequel? Right? How do you do that? Do you do that? Is that the best option for the franchise or is the best option to reboot it? But I just feel that if you do reboot it, and I know some people want a sequel to the 2009 film. I don't think they're going to do that. I really don't. I think that ship has sailed. I understand that the 2009 film has a lot of fans. Derek Mears, of course, is Jason Voorhees, and he was great. He was a great hulking, intimidating beast of a creature. But I think that ship has sailed, and I don't think they will make a sequel to that movie. Although you never know. But I just understanding how the business of Hollywood works. Extremely low. Derek Mears back as Jason? Probably not. Maybe, but probably not. So I think that ship has sailed. I think that'll just be a standalone movie that was what it was from 2009. But, that's kind of how I feel about it. I think there's opportunity here on both sides of the coin, whether you reboot it or do a sequel, to really think about this and really, because largely the Friday the 13th, and again, I don't want to take away the identity. I know they're just fun popcorn, but I think there is an opportunity to at least evolve it and mature it a little bit, where you give yourself the best probability for long-term success in today's horror climate. Because if you're just going to do a cookie cutter slasher movie in today's climate, I don't know if that's going to, you might have another 2009 film on your hand where it's a one and done deal. I think you really do want to think about this a little more and think, okay, what do we do here? What do we do? It doesn't mean it's going to be successful. You can set yourself up and give yourself the best probability and bring in the best team and have a great idea. And for whatever fucking reason, it just doesn't resonate with the fans. And it could be, by all accounts, really good. But for whatever reason, because of it's timing, it's what's going on in the world, it's what's hot right now in the world of horror. There's a number of factors why, that could be other than it just wasn't good. You know what I mean? It could be pretty good. So, but you want to give yourself that best chance. And that's kind of how I feel about it. So I want to throw it out to you guys and see what you think. You've heard what I've had to say here. You've heard sort of where I am when it comes to Friday the 13th and kind of how I would be thinking about it to do another film. Of course, we don't know what they're going to do when the whole rights thing is sorted out. We don't know if they're just going to reboot it all together or if they're going to follow the Halloween sort of trend and pick up from one of the sequels. We have no idea. I doubt they'll do that, in all honesty, but you never know. You never know. So I want to throw it out to you guys and see, what do you guys think? What do you want? What do you want from your Friday the 13th? Tell me right now. Tell me what you want from your Friday the 13th. Let's go to a couple super chats came in here. Andrew L. sends a super chat. Thank you, buddy. Says, they'll never do it, but I would be open to a Pamela-centric movie. You and me both, buddy. You and me as the first movie, setting the foundation, setting the groundwork, exploring that story. And it's like, I would be totally down. At least open to hearing ideas, right? Open to hearing ideas about, could this work? Could we make this work? Is this possible to make this work? Because we know that Jason's the brand, could this work? Maybe. In many cases, it's all in the execution. Sean Reynolds sends in a super chat. Thanks, buddy. Says, just supporting. Love your channel, man. Keep crushing it, Freddie. Keep crushing it, Freddie. Thank you, Sean. Really appreciate it. Wayne, is it Gotke? Wayne Gotke sends in a super chat. Thank you, Wayne. Appreciate that very much. Says, a comic long ago gave a quintessential Jason Voorhees origin story. It involved 100 Native American children drowned in Crystal Lake, thus cursing the camp, giving Jason a life for every child drowned. Interesting. I'm not a comic book guy. I've never read a comic in my life. Now, having said that, I have read comics. I've flipped through them, or I had a bunch of the old, Garfield comics and the books and things like that. But I certainly have never read a comic cover to cover. I've never been a big comic book guy. But one thing I do know from my comic book friends who have is, there are many different stories told in the world of comics, whether it's Star Wars, Marvel, DC, Ninja Turtles, there's Star Trek, there's all, none of, I'm not going to say none of which, but some of which may or may not be canon. They're just sort of what ifs kind of, hey, here's an idea, here's something that's cool, right? That's interesting, but just that alone, I don't think is something. I think the I know this isn't an Indian burial ground per se, but there's that. The idea of the Indian burial ground native it's been done before. So I don't know if I would, again, this is not a burial ground, but in some ways it is a burial ground. It's just the lake is the burial ground, right? Really cool. That is a cool idea in and of itself, but I don't know. I think, yeah, I don't know. It's a cool idea, but I don't know if it came across my desk as an executive that I would be like, yes, that's it. You know what I mean? I might be like, interesting. Okay, I'll put that over there. You know what I mean? Because when you are developing a story, when you are developing a film, there's a lot of ideas that come across, your table, and you put them down. And even if they're ones you're like, I don't know, you just put it on the list. You put it on the list because something may happen in the process of development where you're like, oh, no, you know what? And you know that idea that we had a week ago, maybe that would, and then it makes sense. You know what I mean? But that's interesting. I didn't know that. Thanks for sharing. And thank you for the super chat. Robert Andrew Paul sends in a super chat. Thank you, buddy. Says, I would love to see Derek Mears reprise the role since Kane Hodder is likely out of the question. Well, yeah, Kane Hodder is... Again, it's that thing where Derek Mears was a great Jason. He was great. But, he's not the only guy that can do it. Same with Kane Hodder. I have never fallen into the camp that one individual and only that individual can play that role. And I don't know if it's because, well, look, like I said, I've been in the entertainment industry now for nearly 20 years. I've seen a lot of people play a lot of different roles. I've met a lot of different people. Maybe it's just because I have my ear to the pulse, maybe a little bit more than the average person. That doesn't mean that individual who I adore, like Harrison Ford will always be my Indiana Jones. Always, right? Like Sean Connery will always be, would probably be my parents, James Bond. It's that kind of thing, right? But that doesn't mean that they're the only individual that can do it justice and do it well. Fans get emotionally attached to people and they just don't want to see anybody else play it. And I get it. I understand it, but it's actually not factually correct, and again, I know this can be subjective, but there are people, listen, nobody thought Heath Ledger was going to be great. That guy, the 10 Things I Hate About You guy. I think that's the movie he was in, right? That guy. Brokeback Mountain guy? Well, we saw what happened. So I think there's, and I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm not saying you're saying that, okay? I'm not saying you're saying that. But I do know that there is that thing that goes on in fandom. And because he was great. He was great. But there are a lot of hulking 6'7" guys out there that can play Jason Voorhees if you want him that big. There's a lot of people that can do it. So yeah, I mean, but you know, I get it. I get what you're saying, man. I get what you're saying. But Kane Hodder, yeah. I don't think Kane Hodder, I don't think if they were to reboot the franchise, Kane Hodder's not coming back. If they were to do a sequel to one of the Friday the 13th movies, one of the Friday the 13th movies that Kane Hodder was in, like maybe they did, which I don't think they, like, you know, I hate to say this, folks, but Kane Hodder was in the worst Friday the 13th movies. You know, I mean, he was in 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, those are the worst of the worst Friday the 13th movies. I'm not knocking him. He's fine. He's not my favorite, but he's fine. You know, but he was in the shittiest of the Friday the 13th films. Because I think most Friday the 13th fans agree that the buck probably stops at 6. It's probably where it stops. Doesn't mean you don't have redeeming qualities in a few of the movies, but you know what I'm saying. So unless they were going to do a sequel to Jason Takes Manhattan, well, then it makes sense to bring him back. That would be cool. It's nostalgic and it makes sense because of, you know, hey, it kind of looks like the same guy. But if they were going to do a sequel to 4, I don't think it's necessary, and I don't think they would. I think he would return. Oh, I think Kane Hodder would return like that. But I just don't think they would do it. I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think you need to go fresh and new, and, you know, it happens, man. It's time. Let me see. And Anthony Bazzuto, thank you, buddy, sends a super chat, says, I would like to see Jason have more of a human build and less focus on the supernatural aspect as in Friday the 13th, 6, 7, and 8. Fascinating. Does anybody else agree with Anthony about that? Does anybody else share Anthony's thoughts on that? That's really interesting. So very much kind of like a Steve Dash from Friday the 13th Part 2. I think that was his name, right? Sadly, he passed away last year or the year before. But sort of like that, like a regular just kind of guy. Interesting. And you know, even Richard Brooker and Ted White from Part 3 and 4, they were not, I mean, they were bigger than Dash. And of course they had the, you know, the prosthetics on and things like that. I mean, Jesus, Richard Brooker's traps in Part 3 looked like fucking Goldberg just sitting there. It's just insane. It was funny. But yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I wonder if others feel the same way. Light it up in the chat and let Anthony know. It's kind of cool. Interesting take. Frank Riker sends in a very generous super chat. Thank you very much, Frank. I really appreciate that, man. Dave, if I were to write a Friday the 13th movie, I either have a Pamela Jason killing team. Ooh, interesting. Where Jason kills his mother, decapitating her accidentally, or her with a child Jason killing all who pick on him, where we empathize as a parent. Fascinating. Another interesting take there, folks. Okay, light it up in the chat room. Oh, am I on here? Oh no. Wait, we're back. Wait, we're on. Wait, we're on. We're on. We're on. Okay, we're on. Sorry, there was a bit of a hiccup there. What was the last thing you heard me say? What was the last thing you guys heard me say? Because there was a bit of a hiccup there in the stream. Fucking YouTube again. I'm on. Yeah. The last thing I was reading Frank's super chat. That's what I was doing. But it may have said for about 10 seconds, it wobbles. Okay. Yeah. Frank's idea. Okay, so that's where I was. Okay, so let me go back. I'll just read Frank's super chat again. So we got that. Okay, I'm going to pay attention here. I'm going to actually keep it on this page so I can pay attention to the stream. Yeah, sometimes that happens, but we're on. That's the most important thing, folks. Okay, let me read that again. So Frank says, Dave, if I were to write a Friday the 13th movie, I either have Pamela Jason killing team where Jason kills his mother, decapitating her accidentally, or with child Jason killing all who pick on him where we empathize as a parent. Fascinating. Fascinating. Really interesting, Frank. Well, light it up in the chat room, folks, and let Frank know what you think. That's interesting. So like they're teaming, and then obviously the mother's got to die at some point. I don't know. Which one out of those two, which one would you lean towards with Frank's idea here? Or expand on it? Have the conversation. That's really interesting. Intel Wild sends in a super chat and says, I'm trying to think of a way to go forward with the Friday franchise, but I got nothing. That's all right, man. That's all right. Keep thinking. Keep mulling it about, right? I'm tossing it out to you guys. Die Hard Drummer 84, thank you, buddy, says Sackhead Jason must come back. Ooh, now do you want a Sackhead Jason for the entire movie? Or do you want kind of like what they did in the 2009 remake with Derek Mears, where he's got Sackhead for the first like half of the movie or whatever, and then he gets the goalie mask? Is that how you want to do it? Or do you want like a movie with just Sackhead Jason? And maybe the next movie after that is when he dons the goalie mask. Interesting. Darren Sand says Ted White is 94. Bring him back! Get Ted White in there, for God's sakes. Let's bring him back. Can you imagine? That'd be funny. Let me see here. Aaron Click says, speaking of traps, check out Tom Hardy's Traps in Warrior. They each have their own zip code. That's funny. I need to give you a rim shot. That's good. There you go. Let me see here. Jim Joe says maybe Jason is a killer, but he's zombie kid. But he's zombie kid like killer from the end of part 1. Question is, would he wear any clothes or just be in the swim trunks? Well, I guess that depends on how logical you want to get, right? There's logic, and then there's movie logic. And as long as movie logic creates some sort of sense of believability, usually an audience will suspend their disbelief, proportionately. Like, oh, okay, sure, okay. You know what I mean? But you don't want to go too far and too crazy with movie logic, because it can start, you can lose your audience. I think having him in the swim trunks might be a bit funny. I would rather have him naked. Now, you don't have to show him naked, per se, but you get that sense when you see the character. He's fucking buck naked. You know what I mean? And because, I don't know, he was in the bottom of the lake. He was there for however many years. The swim trunks fell off. I don't know. I think it would just make more sense. Seeing him in his... But then again, I stand to be corrected, because you said that it was kid Jason. So he's still a kid, so maybe he wasn't in the bottom of the lake for that long. If he's a kid and he's still got his swim trunks on, that might be kind of interesting. And certainly you don't want to create, you don't want to run into any issues with naked children, right? So that might be interesting. But if he's an adult and he's running around in the swim trunks he drowned in when he was 12 or something, I think that might come across as a little comical. But I get what you're saying. Very interesting stuff. Let's see here. Let me go back. Balon TV says, I like the idea of both of them being in the same movie, but having them kill as a team seems too much. Okay, there you go. Seems just a little too much. Okay, all right. A Haunting Autumn says, really like Frank's second idea. Okay, Alexander Dirksen says, I want a prequel with Pamela and sequel to the remake, a dark and brutal horror drama. I want a prequel with Pamela and a sequel to the remake. So I see what you're saying. So you want to have a prequel to the original Friday the 13th from 1980, where it's about Pamela and sort of her, because she was a chef, right? That worked in the kitchen at the camp or something like that. That used to help Mr. Christie, I think. So, okay, so you tell that story, and Jason is a kid at the camp, I guess, and you build up to and maybe the end of the first movie is sort of Jason's demise in the lake and blah, blah, blah. It might be interesting. It's interesting. You know, I could see the studios being like, because, you know, it's, well, you know why, right? But certainly I would be like, that's interesting to me. That's very interesting. And then you leapfrog over the original film because, you know, you have that, and you do a direct sequel negating Friday the 13th Part 2, the original Friday the 13th Part 2, which is a beloved film. And you do a direct sequel to that one. Fascinating stuff. Okay. Interesting. Very interesting indeed. Let's go back, make sure I didn't miss any super chats here. No, I didn't. I don't think so. Die Hard Drummer, I think, was the last one. Okay, let's see. Mother Mayhem makes her way into the chat, and she says, history has proven that people don't really go to Friday the 13th films for the story. I want more of the opening to 09, just more of that. No new info, no gimmicks, just a killing spree. KISS, right. Keep it simple, stupid. There you go. There you go. Do you agree with Mother Mayhem? She's on the other side of the coin where it's like, you know what? Just go it out. Just fucking put it out there. Just put it out there. The only concern I would have with that, of course, is in today's horror climate, because the world of horror movies has matured, and audiences largely are beginning to demand more from their movies, that the shelf life for something like that would be relatively short. So you may find yourself in a Friday the 13th 9 scenario again if 09, I mean. Excuse me, if the remake is pretty much like the 09 film, it's just as good as that, but it's just a new take on it, you might find yourself running into a similar situation if there's not a little bit more meat on the bone for people to glom onto in anticipation for what comes next. But certainly, Mother Mayhem is not incorrect. I mean, people traditionally do not watch Friday the 13th movies for the story. She is 100% on that. Todd Fayer sends in a super chat and says, a very generous one, by the way. Thank you very much, Todd. Says, David Gordon Green could direct a Friday the 13th reboot and ruin that franchise also. Maybe he will. Maybe he will direct it. I don't think Blumhouse would hire him to direct a Friday the 13th movie. Not for the reasons that you said there, but just because I think they may want another voice. You know what I mean? And Blumhouse doesn't have the rights to the Friday the 13th franchise right now. So it wouldn't be Blumhouse hiring him anyway. It would be, well, I guess they don't have, it would be, who has it? Warner Brothers, I think, right now has it, I think. Something like that. I don't know. Maybe, I think. Interesting stuff. Frank Riker sends in a super chat. Thank you, Frank, and says, Pamela, a young girl being teased, growing up and kills her tormentors. Ooh. She gets pregnant with a boy she fell in love with, but he dies. Later, she gives birth and calls the child Jason. Fade out. Ooh. What do you guys think? I don't know. Pretty crazy stuff. Mother Mayhem follows up with, but look at how well Never Hike Alone went. Very simple. Jason is about being artistic. He's not hereditary. No, he's definitely not. He's definitely not that. And that's certainly not what I meant by more meat on the bone, right? But certainly there was a hook to the end of that movie that got people really excited about where it's going to go, which of course was the introduction of Tom Matthews as Tommy Jarvis. So that was that more meat on the bone that gave people, the narrative was very simple and it was great. And it was very much Friday the 13th. I agree with you 100%. That the execution of that was great. And then there was that extra hook at the end where it's like, oh, there's a little more substance here. So now you think to yourself, well, what does it all mean? Where has Tommy been? You know, has he had an experience with Jason before? You know, he's a paramedic now. How did that come to be? You know, where has he been? What's he been doing? How does he fit into all this? Right? There's that more meat there that got people really excited at the end of that movie. And then of course we see Never Hike in the Snow, which is actually a prequel to Never Hike Alone. So now when you watch Never Hike in the Snow, which is a prequel to Never Hike Alone, you will get those answers to where Tommy, the original, not the original obviously, but Tom Matthews from Friday the 13th Part 6, you know, and of course the actor's name escapes me now, but the cop that was in part 6 that was like, wherever the doc goes, shebang, right? Or whatever. He's in Never Hike in the Snow as well. So now you have, so now that's that more meat where it brings people in where it's like, what's going on here? This is interesting. How do these people all fit into this? What's happening, right? And then if Never Hike in the Snow is really successful, he'll launch the campaign to do the sequel to Never Hike Alone, which then starts to connect everything moving forward. So certainly it is not void of meat on the bone, and it is not void of story, but the simplicity is the key. The simplicity is the key, which I agree with. Let's see here. I got Frank's super chat. Yes, I did. Aaron Click says, also, the general movie-going audience isn't a sweaty Friday the 13th fans. The studio will... That's very true. Same goes with any horror franchise. The general movie-going audience isn't as sweaty as Friday the 13th fans. The studio will want to do it well beyond the niche audiences. The need for the little more substance. I agree. No, I agree. And when I say more substance, again, I'm talking about sort of that extra meat on the bone that entices people. It entices the fans, but it also gets general movie-going audience to go, oh, interesting. Okay. But Mother Mayhem is right in the sense of it's the simplicity of Friday the 13th that needs to be there. But so you don't want to convolute that too much. But you got to have something there that gets people sort of, excited. Wayne Gotke says they need to give Jason a definitive death, being that the next film will be the franchise's 13th. Oh, interesting. All right. What do you guys think? Wayne's like, no, man, this needs to be a one-off, one and done, man. Let's just do it up. He says they need to give Jason a definitive death because this will be the 13th film in the franchise. It doesn't mean you can't make subsequent Friday films as everything gets rebooted. That is true. Oh, so you're talking about like from the original timeline. So you want to go back to the original timeline because you know what? What's crazy about this, as Tony Michael has often pointed out for years, is that although, and I do agree with him, although the Friday the 13th franchise as a whole is it's a shit show, really, as a whole, right? As crazy as Jason Goes to Hell is, it actually is still in the same continuity as the first Friday the 13th movie. That's crazy because it's so weird and dumb and comical and just off the wall goofy, but it actually is, it's the same timeline. It follows it. There is a linear timeline between Friday the 13th Part 1 and Freddy versus Jason. And it's crazy. So what Wayne's saying here is that maybe go back and do the 13th Friday film. So it's still the same timeline. You may then maybe think about getting Kane Hodder back. But you give it a definitive ending and end it on the 13th film. Well, that is an idea. That is an idea. Fascinating stuff. Frank Riker sends in a super chat. Thank you again, Frank. Says, would you make Jason's father have the last name Jarvis? Imagine a relationship with Tommy. I don't think so. I think that's sort of, I think that's a little too on the nose. I think that's just a little too much there. I don't think I would do that. No, I don't think I would do that. But again, throw it out to the chat room. What do you guys think? I love that you guys are talking amongst each other and just great stuff. It's great to see stuff. 134 people watching here on this Friday morning. Well, it's still Friday morning where I am. Another 10 minutes left till noontime. Blu-ray Addict says, the first Friday the 13th is one of my least favorites in the franchise, although I still like it. Ironically, the first Friday the 13th is my favorite in the franchise. And you know all the reasons why. So yeah, the very first Friday the 13th is actually my favorite in the franchise. That doesn't mean the first 4 movies, really? When I watch to me, the first 4 Friday the 13th films is essentially the series. I can watch 5 and 6 and be like, okay, it's fine. It definitely feels like Friday the 13th. 5 does, although it's not Jason, it's Roy. It's got a Friday the 13th feel to it. It's still the mid-'80s, right? Still the slasher genre. Well, no, it's still... In 1985, the slasher genre was at the end of its peak. from the late 70s to about 1985, the slasher subgenre was going like this. And when it hit about 85, 86, that's when it made the curve. It made the turn. And then by late 86, 87, 88, it starts to come down. Now, that doesn't mean that there were not good slasher movies released in 87, 88, or 89. If you're a huge fan of, Friday the 13th, Part 7 and 8, great. If you're a huge fan of Dream Warriors and Dream Master and Dream Child, great. Child's Play, great. Halloween 4 and 5, great. Hellraiser, I think there was a Hellraiser 1 released in the late 80s. I'm not saying that the slasher subgenre didn't exist, but there's a turn. There's a turn, right? And that turn happened in about late 86, 87. And then by the time you got to 89, 90, the slasher subgenre was essentially dead. And it was resurrected, albeit in a evolutionary sort of way, in 1996 with Scream. So, and that doesn't mean there wasn't a slasher movie here or there released in 91 and, like Candyman and all that, but it was largely dead. What was I saying here? God, I go off on a tangent. Oh, right. But for me, my favorite is the original, and the series for me is essentially 1 through 4. That really is the series. Those are my favorite Friday the 13th films. Dia Maria is here. I'm late, everyone. That's okay, Dia. That's okay. Better late than never. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 are my go-tos. My kids like 8 because we live in New York City. Oh, that's funny. And ironically, it was filmed in Vancouver. Did you know that? Oh, yeah. I mean, they certainly got some B-roll and skyline shots of Manhattan, but Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, the bulk of it, actually, if not all of it, was shot in Vancouver. So that's actually kind of funny. But don't tell your kids that. It's just between us. It's just between us. Don't tell them that. Andrew Todd says, Dave, have you ever watched Scream, the MTV series? You mean the Scream, the Netflix thing? Or Scream the MTV? No, you said Scream the MTV series. What is that about? Is that like Scream, or is that just Scream as in meaning ah? I don't know. Michael Dean says, Dave, do you think about the Friday the 13th from what do you think about the Friday the 13th from 2009? I think Derek Mears is one of the best Jasons. I've seen the movie a couple times. I don't hate the movie. I certainly can see why a lot of people like that movie. I don't think it was a bad remake, but I didn't love the movie. I think it felt, and this is just my opinion, I think it felt too polished, I wanted a bit grittier, maybe. I don't know. It had a bit of I didn't really like the color grade on the film, and because I think that was at a time when they were still, I think they're still doing it. Why they color grade Hollywood films with this turquoise, orangey, bluey, green? I don't know. I mean, I liked the brutality of the movie. I liked Derek Mears as Jason. I thought there were some really great kills in the movie. Overall, I think it's certainly better than most of the sequels. But I didn't love it. I liked it more than the remake to Elm Street. I will say that. But it's not one that I was over the moon about. So I didn't really care that there wasn't a follow-up, but I didn't hate it. I was like, man, it was all right. Whatever. It's kind of indifferent to it, I guess. Super chat comes in from Justin Simonson. Thank you, Justin. Says, can't wait for your Goonies 2 dude, man. What are your thoughts on if they made a sequel? Has potential with the time we're in, a sequel to the Goonies? Yeah, for those of you that don't know, this Sunday night, again, Tony and I normally do our shows every Monday night, but every so often we have to switch around for, several different reasons. The Goonies was released on June 7th, 1985. So this year is the 35th anniversary of The Goonies, and this Sunday is June 7th. So Tony and I thought, well, it's just one day prior to when we normally do our show anyway, so why not do the show on Sunday? You know, because it is 35 years to the day. So this Sunday night, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Tony and I are watching The Goonies on Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. Make sure you tune in to that. And then of course, we go back to our regular day the following week. So, oh yeah, and the question is, what do I think about a sequel where, I mean, the thing is this, is that because these guys are all my age, actually a little bit older, because, yeah, they're probably about, I'm 41, so Sean Astin's probably in his late 40s now. So they're all probably in their late 40s with, what's his face there? Brolin being in his early 50s, probably. Here's the thing, is that history tells me, and I get it why you would do this, that if you were to make a Goonies sequel, you would bring all the originals back, but it would be all their children. You know, and it's like, nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see that. That's not what you want to see. Unfortunately, there should have been a Goonies. If you were going to do a sequel to The Goonies, it should have been about, I don't know, 33 years ago. Really, that's what it should have been. Because The Goonies is very much like Stranger Things, okay? In the sense of, I've said countless times that Stranger Things is a 3-4 season show. Maybe 5, depending on how quickly you dish out the seasons. Because the children, I mean, you know this, we were all, kids once. We grow like weeds between 13 and 18, right? I mean, you're growing like a weed and you're tall, all of a sudden, hey, what's going on, guys? Yeah, what's happening? I mean, I was like 15, I looked like I was 25 and I sounded like I was 30. The crux and the heart of Stranger Things, which is very Goonies-esque, is the childhood innocence and imagination, right? It's that it relies so much on being a kid and the wonder and the adventure and the imagination, and that is the heart of Stranger Things. When you have the kids getting into their late teens, early 20s, there are other things that take that over, right? That was one of the big things about Stand By Me. One of the morals of Stand By Me is that as we get older, we lose the childhood innocence. You know what I mean? It's a big component to that movie. So when it comes to Goonies, you either make it a children's movie geared towards children, you would be making a movie, you bring everybody back, but now it's an adventure with their kids. That's not to say that it couldn't be maybe a great movie. It's all in the execution, but it just seems shoehorned in. It seems like, of course, now it's their kids, and of course, if they wait another 10 years, it could be their kids. I mean, it just feels like that ship has sailed. It just sailed. It's because nobody really wants to see I don't really want to go on an adventure with Mikey's son. I don't give a fuck about Mikey's son. I don't care about Data's kid. I don't care because I don't care about them. I care about these guys, but they're like 50, Now, unless you do a Goonies sequel that doesn't involve their children and they all have to get back together for whatever reason for an adventure, that might be interesting, but I don't think that would do very well at the box office per se. Maybe if you just do it to streaming or something, I just think the ship has sailed for the Goonies. I think there should have been a Goonies sequel. Yeah, like the point I'm making is that when you lose the childhood innocence, which is what the Goonies is, very Stranger Things, it becomes sort of, it doesn't feel organic, it doesn't feel, because basically what I'm trying to say is that you would then be asking us to get attached to the Goonies' children. And the reason why they would make it about their children is because that's what the Goonies is about. It is about the childhood innocence. It's about the adventure, the imagination. You can't do that with adults and make it really believable. You can, but it would be like it. One of the reasons why people love It Chapter 1 as opposed to It Chapter 2, no matter which version of the movie you watch, whether it's the 90 miniseries or what, there is something lost. Now, I don't think Chapter 2 in both versions is as bad as people make it out to be, but certainly there is something lost. You lose the childhood innocence and imagination and adventure, which is the crux and the heart of that story. So if you don't have that moving forward, it just feels, well, it was a nice visit, but you're never going to capture that imagination again. There should have been a Goonies sequel in 87 or 88, when they were like 15 now or something. That's when you should have done it. Now, Sean Astin comes out. He's like, hey, here's my son, Michael Jr., and him and his kids are going on adventure. And the parents all have to be like, oh, now, kids, I remember when I was your age. And maybe they got to go to their parents for, when I was your age, I went on a treasure hunt. And there's little, chunky Sean Astin sitting there with his map going, those are my friends. I mean, we know how this narrative's going to go. We just know how this is going to go. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of, I think it's gone now. I think it's gone. As much as I would love to see it, the nostalgia in me, I think the ship has sailed. Oh, yeah, no pun intended. The ship has sailed. That's right, Justin Simonson. I think that pirate ship has sailed. It should have been 33 years ago. Let's see here. Mother Mayhem sends in a super chat. Thank you, Mother Mayhem, and says, in His Name Was Jason, the final girls weigh in on coming back as a fanfare to finally finish off Jason. A great finale, a great final and 13th installment. Ooh, yes. Yeah, I see where you're going. Again, we're asking sort of to break that fourth wall a bit, but certainly if you're going to connect it to the original series, right, and include all of the sequels, I like it. I like that idea because you're not asking your audience to reset, right? Okay, we're starting again and this is how we're going to evolve it here, right? You're saying, hey, all of this still exists and this is the ending of everything. It's I'd be open to hearing more about that for sure. I kind of like that a little bit, especially when you're connecting it to just the series, which just got crazy anyway. So I kind of like it. And thank you for the super chat, Mother Mayhem. Really appreciate that. Blu-ray Addict says, do you think there's going to be a season 5 of Stranger Things? I think there is, because I think they would have announced 4 as the last one. They did announce 4 as the last one. They did. I think there's always a chance that 5 could be the last one. But again, you're running, and now because of the delay in production, because of COVID-19, the kids already look like, they could be in college. And, you're losing that. When you get to that was what I wanted to say earlier when I was talking about the Goonies. There's a certain age you get to where the adventure and playing with your friends, the imagination and goes. Now, if you're a big kid like me, it never really goes away completely. But certainly it goes away because other things take over. Usually girls and boys for girls, or maybe boys for boys, girls for girls, whatever. We're all a big happy family here. But certainly, the teen angst and the drama and the sexual desires and hormones, and that becomes the most important fucking thing in your life when you're 16. Come on. You all remember when you're 16. Did you think about anything else? No. It was either who likes who? Does she like me? Does he like me? Oh my God, I don't know. Oh, I don't know if he likes me. Oh, no. I'm dating myself here. I'm on a landline. Hey, kids, that's called a landline. It's like, no, call. No. I can't tell you how many times I'd have hours of conversations on the phone with my buddies talking about the girls we liked, I understand that what Stranger Things has done is that they've introduced that element to season 3, certainly with the younger kids, not necessarily with Steve, because he was always older anyway. But certainly they've introduced that element there, but it becomes such a huge proponent of your life at that age that it overtakes anything else. And then, of course, we hit 18, 19, you're in college now, and I just don't think it's going to work. I just don't think it's going to work because Stranger Things, like Goonies, like Stand By Me, like, Monster Squad, like The Sandlot, they're very dependent on what it's like being a kid that age, and the imagination that runs wild. And of course, in Stranger Things, The Sandlot, right? They think there's this monster on the other side of the fence. Oh my God. It is kind of, but it's not the monster they think it is, right? You couldn't do that when you're 19. You're not going to be sitting there going, oh my God, unless it's an actual monster, I guess, which then it goes back to Stranger Things. You're like, well, what if it's a real monster? But I just think the crux and heart of those films and series is really, it's all about the childhood innocence. And when you hit 20, I don't want to see a 24-year-old Mikey and, Will and all kind of, it's just going to look strange. It's going to look weird. You know what I mean? That's how I feel about it anyway. Let me see. So yes, I do. They have announced that 4 is the last one. That is their goal. And because of the delay in production now, I think it's more likely it will be. I just don't think that, you get out while it's hot. I could totally see them doing a reunion something down the road, but continuing on and on is other more important things are going to take, and you wouldn't live in Hawkins. See, that's the thing too. Thank God that, Joyce at the end of 3 was moving out of Hawkins. You wouldn't continue to live there. Eventually, got to end it. There's nothing wrong with ending it, but I think there's possibly 5. But I think 4's the sweet spot. Vanderhoff66FU says, hey, Dave, what about Pamela Voorhees helping her son Jason to pick off the counselors? Well, then that's just like a team up, right? Like help in what way? You mean like seek out, or she's killing the counselors as well, maybe? Is that what you're talking about? Not sure. Jim Joe sends in a super chat. Thank you, Jim. Says, thanks. Thanks for the hours of Adua entertainment. Yes, I appreciate that very much. Hours and hours and hours and hours. Blur Addict says, I think they're doing a sequel to The Sandlot on Disney Plus with the OG actors. And what is it going to be? Probably the OG actors and their children? That's usually how those things go. Now, maybe not. Maybe the 45-year-old Sandlot kids will all get into some adventure together. But, you got to ask I don't know. I bet you it has something to do. I had never heard that, but I bet you right now it's probably something to do with their children. You can let me know if I'm right on that. Andrew Todd says, Stranger Things unfortunately does have a shelf life, and I really hope Netflix does start making the series. And I really hope Netflix doesn't start milking the series in the future. I agree, because it's important to remember that it does have a shelf life because of that foundation, that identity, right? It's like, you remember when you were a kid, 11, 12, 13, playing with your friends, riding your bikes. That's what it's all about. Remembering that time, and I just don't think it will be a shell of itself if we follow these kids into college, because it's not going to be believable. It's just like, and are they all going to go to the same college? Are they all going to I just think it's, got to let it go sometimes. Got to let it go. I agree. I agree with everything you've said there. Justin Simonson sends in a super chat. Thank you, Justin. Really appreciate it. Says, when you were a kid, did you ever have any doubts about becoming a filmmaker? With how hard it is to get into the business, what drove you to keep going? Hoping It's Me, Billy gives you more opportunities. Thank you so much for that. I hope so too. Well, did I ever have any doubts? No, I never had any doubts. I just was always I was always figuring out my way of breaking into the industry. And of course, I broke into the industry as an actor. That was how I broke in the early 2000s. After I left college, I went to film school, did 2 years there. Learned all about film and radio and TV and production and post-production and pre-production and development and distribution and the business of film. It was great. I learned a lot, but I started to fall behind because I found the workload was too much. I talked about this on a show last week, I think. I found that the workload was just too much. So I left, and I'm a very theatrical guy, very crazy, in case you guys haven't noticed. I come from a performing background, and, I love to make people laugh and just be crazy and funny. So I decided to leave college and pursue a career in on-camera acting. So I got an agent. I was auditioning for commercials and docudramas and working on set, and then I broke my teeth playing street hockey, and that put me on hiatus to be on camera because I got a hole in my face. And then I fell into the voiceover work, and I haven't looked back. So the voiceover side of things, which is acting, it's acting, but you're acting behind the microphone, has been my bread and butter for the last, over 16, 17 years now. And that's where I've sort of remained. That's been my main job in the entertainment industry. I've also done some post-production too, some sound mixing and mastering on some short independent films. And I've worked on set as a PA. I visited the Suicide Squad set. Say that 10 times fast. When they shot here in Toronto, because I had a buddy who was a PA who invited me down to the set. So that was really cool. I had to, I got to visit that. I had a buddy who worked as a PA on the set of the first It film, which shot in Port Hope, which is just about an hour and a bit east of here. And I was hoping to go visit the It set, but it wasn't the same guy. It was a different guy, but he couldn't get me down there. So I was like, that's okay. Don't worry about it. It was just too crazy. Anyway, so I've never really had any doubts. I've just always... So, I made a lot of, little short films and things like that. But I've never made a feature. I've never made a Hollywood film, because my career as a filmmaker per se really took a back seat because of the voiceover side of things. The voiceover side of things took off, and I didn't look back. And of course, I've always wanted to get back into the filmmaking side of things on a more serious note. I've written a lot of short scripts, a lot of original stuff. I'm not talking about little Halloween stuff. I'm talking about original shit that I want to do. I've written a feature-length film called Port Robinson Road that I want to do. And then it's me, Billy. Although it's a fan film, it's original in a way because it's extending the story further, and it's an original idea, although it is using the IP of Black Christmas. But we're taking this very seriously. And so I'm excited to finally be able to, if we can raise the budget, and we're hoping, we need your help, to make a real film, and obviously we can't make any money off of this, but the production value and the time and the effort that we're putting into it, we want to deliver a professional product to you guys. And, I was inspired, like a lot of us were, by Never Hike Alone and of what fan films could be, and to get off and of course I was inspired, with what Cecil was doing as well. And I'm like, Jesus, I've been, I got to get off my ass here and start making more movies. You know what I mean? Got to fucking do this, because I know so many people in the industry here in Toronto, and it wasn't like that when I first began, obviously. But now where I am, I'm like, I got to utilize my resources and connections and see if, let's fucking do this. So I reached out to my buddy Bruce. He's like, let's do it, but I've never doubted myself. I don't know if I've been overly confident, but I've always believed that I was capable. And I owe a lot of that to my mom, who of course passed away in 2011, but she knew that I could do what I wanted to do. But so I've had down moments like all of us have. I've had moments where I've been frustrated at maybe the lack of progress. Early on in my career, I worked at Walmart as a starving artist. I worked at Walmart. I worked at a video store. I remember having run-ins with the managers there where I'd have an audition that I'd have to go to, but I had to work that same day as well. And I'd be like, well, I want to go to this audition. They're like, but you have to work that day, which I understand. I mean, they're trying to run a business there, right? So I'm trying to wheel and deal with them. And I'm like, okay, but what about if you can switch your shift, then you can go to your audition. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to, I remember there was time when I was working at Rogers Video here in Canada. It's not around anymore, obviously. It was the Blockbuster of Canada. And I booked a gig for voiceover. And this is when I was first starting my VO career. And it was going to pay me about $500. And of course, working for 8 hours at the video store was going to pay me about, I don't know what, $80 or something like that. So I said to my manager, I was like, well, I'm going to go. She's like, well, now, and I looked right at her and I'm like, what would you do? What would you do? $500 for half an hour's work? 8 hours for it. What would you do? And I looked at her and I said that right to her, my manager. And she goes, go do the voiceover. Go do the voiceover. She's like, yeah, okay, you're right. I said, I'll come right in. I'll come right in. I'll look, I'll work later. I can't come in at this time because come on, cut me some slack here. So, just things like that. Like there's always been obstacles and things like that in my career early on, especially trying to sort of figure things out and, work with people and there's been auditions that I've auditioned for that I didn't get, which is the nature of the business. I always say this to any act. I mean, unless you're Brad Pitt or Harrison Ford or something where you are in demand of that way. But certainly early on in your life, every actor will always audition far more than they work. That's just the nature of the business. You know what I mean? And then if you're good and if you're talented and if you're lucky, you will land gigs and you will land jobs. So early on, there's a lot of auditions that I wish I had gotten that I never got. But then there's auditions where I was talking about this with Miko Hughes the other day, actually, when we were having our production meeting, because obviously he knows all about auditioning as certainly a young child actor in the early 90s. We were sort of laughing and sharing we laughed at the idea of auditioning for things that you think you're going to get and you don't get. You're like, how did I not? I thought I was amazing. And then you audition for something and you're like, nah, I just wasn't feeling it. And you walk away and, a couple of days later, your agent calls you and you're like, okay, you booked it. And you're like, what? I thought I sucked. That happens too. I can't tell you how many times I've walked out of an audition going, yes, fucking nailed that. And I never hear back. And then there's times I leave an audition. I'm like, damn, I just wasn't feeling it today. Fuck. And I book the gig, It's a funny thing. It's a very, very funny thing. So anyway, not to keep on here about this, but I can't say there's never been a moment where I've wanted to give up, but certainly there's been frustrating moments. But I think my belief in myself has always been a reminder to stay calm, stay cool, figure it out, figure it out. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Let me see here. I just want to check the super chats. No, that was the last one that came in. Okay, good. Last one that came in as I was rambling on there about working my way up. Jay Lawson says, I'm so excited for you. Live Black Christmas. Dude, we are very excited. We're very excited. Actually, coming this Tuesday, at some point in the evening, myself and Bruce and our DP Greg Bennett and our main cast anyway, are going to be having a Zoom call. It's our first Zoom call that we're going to have. Ideally, we wanted to meet everybody in person and go out for lunch, which I think we're still going to do. We're still going to do that. But of course, the restaurants are still closed here. They're only doing takeout and delivery. So it's the beginning of June, so we're like, okay, let's just have this Zoom call and get out of the way. So I'm really excited to talk to them finally and meet them, and because we've talked on the phone, we exchanged texts, we've exchanged emails, but I have not talked or seen face to face our actors. So we're really excited about that. We're excited, man. We're excited. We really, really are. Again, Bruce and I are under no delusions. We know that raising the production budget for It's Me, Billy will be difficult. We're hoping maybe it won't be as difficult as we think it probably will be. And it's not because we don't think you guys are wanting to or are passionate fans that are going to help us out. It's just the nature of the IP. Black Christmas isn't one of your more popular IPs, right? It's not Halloween. It's not Friday. It's not Elm Street. It's one that, generally doesn't create a lot of buzz. So when the average person sees Black Christmas fan film, they're like, oh, okay, whatever. You know what I mean? So we know we're a little bit behind the eight ball there, at a little bit of a disadvantage. So we know that we're going to have to work hard, and we're counting on you guys to spread the word and talk to people who may be really interested in helping us out. And, we really want to do it because we really want to make this movie, not just for us, but for you guys as well. So, and the talent involved is just fantastic. So fingers crossed. And like I said, we're really hoping to launch the campaign by the end of June, beginning of July. That's what we're hoping to do. Jim Joe says, Dave, you say Black Christmas isn't as strong of an IP as Halloween or Friday, but I think that's a good thing. So many of those bigger IPs get lost in the shuffle. Any hopes of a Christmas release for Billy? Well, definitely not Christmas this year. I can tell you that. You're right. I mean, look, ironically, it may work in our favor because there isn't one and it's not out there. It's not a saturated market, right? Jim is right. I mean, there is that angle to it. And there, you can look at the Blumhouse Black Christmas movie that was released in December and think, well, because that most people didn't like that movie, that actually might not do us any favors. Or you could look at it and go, actually, because most people didn't like that movie, that might do you guys a whirlwind of favors. Who knows how it's going to play out? I don't really know. I know there is a lot. We are planning on sending out a press release just before we launch our campaign to a lot of the online horror publications and, sites. Whether they will run it, I don't know. I mean, they're not obligated to do so. But hopefully some of them will, and that'll create some buzz. We'll see. I don't really know yet. I know the community here seems to be relatively excited. I know there are definitely some more outspoken people than others that are like, yes, fucking do this, which is amazing. I love that passion. I think you guys are awesome. But if someone was to ask me, how do you think the climate is right now I'd be like, I'm not sure. I think people are excited. Whenever I post about it, talk about it, people seem to be like, okay, all right. Yeah. This is awesome. But I don't know yet. I don't know yet. It'll be very interesting to see once the campaign launches to see how, what the momentum is like. And like I said, we're going to do It's Me, Billy-a-thons on the channel as well to help raise some money for the film. And like I said, we're looking to raise about $45,000 US because that is what it will take to achieve the vision for this film. So yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see. But I'm telling you, we can do this together. We can do it together. Matthew Hatzimilia says, Dave, I love your idea from a few years back, not the one with you and Tony. Oh, yes. You're talking Friday the 13th. Yes. Yes. From like 2017 or something like that? Where, yes, it was just me talking about a Friday the 13th, how I would open the remake of, yes. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I really like that too, a lot. Dusty Rose says, hey, Dave, do you think Danielle Harris is desperate for constantly trying to get involved with Halloween's latest installment? Okay, well, number one, I don't think she's constantly trying to get involved with Halloween's latest installments. I don't think that's true at all. I think that I don't think she asked to be in Halloween Kills. I think that whenever there is something new that comes up in the world of Halloween, like for example, when they were talking about doing Halloween 2018, I think Danielle Harris, she was like, oh, cool. They're going to, well, just let you guys know if you want me, like I'm available. You know what I mean? There's no doubt she was wronged back many moons ago, 25 years ago was the release of Yeah, 25 years ago was the release of Halloween 6. Look, it is the Halloween franchise, and there's nothing wrong with this. It's not that she hasn't done other things. It's not that she hasn't been in any other movies. She has. She's been in the Hatchet films. She was in Rob Zombie's films. But she is most identified, most beloved as Jamie Lloyd from Halloween 4 and Halloween 5. That is her calling card to the horror industry. So, it makes and it makes sense that whenever something Halloween comes up, she pokes around, where I would draw a issue, and I don't even think she's saying this. Maybe she said this at one time, but I don't think Danielle Harris is saying this now. My issue has always been with the fans thinking that she desperately needed to be the daughter of Laurie in H18. That's where I draw although I did do a video on Danielle Harris a couple of years ago where I was drawing issue with something she said, and I can't fucking remember what that was. But anyway, my issue is I will never have an issue with Danielle Harris poking around, kind of like, hey, let's, kind of see what the climate is. Oh, I don't have an issue with that. No. I will only take issue if it's no, I desperately need to be in this. You owe me this. You fucking owe me this because you wronged me. It's like, no, girl, that's 25 years ago. It's pretty much over. They've apologized for it. There's that ship has sailed. That I think needs to be let go. But poking around, if there's Halloween shit that maybe you could be a part of, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's her bread and butter, man. Not her bread and butter. Well, I mean, it's her bread and butter in the sense that that's her identity to the horror universe, right? So, I get it. I get it. There's reasons why she's dressed up in the clown costume as a 42-year-old woman, in promotional shots that she signs at the conventions. And she's not dressed up as somebody, as anybody else. I mean, it is what she's most identified with. So, yeah, I mean, I don't agree that she's desperate. I don't agree with that. I don't get that sense. I don't get that sense. I just think that it's her as an actor too. I mean, her career is largely in the B universe and which I'm sure she's fine with, but anytime an actor sees an opportunity to maybe be a part of something, they look into it. I always take issue with people who say that, no, she needs to be, it's the right thing to do. It's like, no, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Blu-ray Addict says, if you guys were to only raise 30 or 35,000, this is a good question, would you still go forward with making It's Me, Billy? I don't know. I would have to talk to Bruce about that. And we would have to look at, because if we were to only raise 30 to 35,000, something would have to be cut. And what I mean by that is either we can't shoot where we want to shoot. We can't shoot the scenes we want to shoot. We can't shoot for as long as we want to shoot. We may not be able to hire certain things we want to do, So it's. I mean, maybe, but it might not be all it could be. So in that case, what we might do is either refund everybody, which you can do, or you take that and you restructure the film to be a $30,000 to $35,000 movie, which would take a while to do. And you make something different. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. Like, just to give people an example of sort of, again, like, it's not unprecedented that when you're shooting a movie for 6 or 7 days, you have to pay for the location for which you're shooting at. And it's not unprecedented when you're renting out homes or houses or, buildings or restaurants or, wherever you're shooting. that costs money. Now, if you're fortunate enough to know somebody who has a restaurant and they allow you to shoot there for free, well, that's great, but you can't just count on that all the time. And, it's not unprecedented if you're shooting in a house, that's going to cost you, $1,200, $1,300 a day. That's just to shoot there. That's $1,200 or $1,300 a day just to shoot there. Well, if you're shooting for 6 or 7 days, we'll add that up. That's like $7,000 or $8,000. That's just for the location. That doesn't include equipment rental and craft services and accommodations and insurance and it's insane, right? I mean, it's insane. I don't mean it's insane like that's not appropriate, like we're being ripped off. No, it's insane in terms of, wow, when you don't have the perspective of how much it costs to make a movie, even a short film, when you want to make a movie, you want to do it right. You want to make a real movie. This is what it costs, and because we're going through the steps in the process of what you would do. Now we're doing it on a much littler scale as opposed to what would be done on like a Star Wars movie, but the process is still the same. And so if we raise 30 to 35,000, now if that's 30 to 35,000 US, that'll be into the 40,000 Canadian. So, maybe. We would have to look at it and figure it out. Like right now, we're hoping to raise 40 to 45,000 US, which is about 60,000 Canadian. Well, if we raise 30 to 35,000, if that's US, that'll be about 45,000, Canadian. It's like anything's possible, but something would have to be cut. We would have to either negotiate, a lower rate for the location, which that doesn't usually, that may not happen. We would have to negotiate. Something would have to be cut, so maybe we can't shoot in the location we want to shoot at. And if you knew where we were going to shoot in what we were going to shoot, and then where we have to end up shooting, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's so important that we're really hoping we can raise the money we need and then some as well. Like if we raise 45,000, that's great, but we don't want to stop there, right? Like say there's 2 weeks left in the campaign. We're really hoping that people continue to contribute because it will only benefit the production. So now it's like, oh my God, we raised 52,000, let's say. That's amazing. Well, this is great because instead of shooting for 6 days, now we can take our time a little bit more and shoot for 8 days. Oh, what a relief, right? So if there ends up being a day that, things go awry and because there's always problems that happen on set, right? And we lose a bit of time, well, okay, no worries. We got that extra day at the back end, thanks to being able to raise that bit of extra money, right? So it's always beneficial. It's always beneficial, and so that really helps. So great question. The short answer is, because me, I'm all over the place. The short, but it's because I care about giving you the details. The short answer is, I don't know. We'll have to reassess at that time. The longer answer is what I just said there. Let me see here. Gary Rangel says, Dave, Rob Zombie lacks directing a horror film setting in today's modern time. He always makes a film set feel like it's the 80s or the 70s. Never makes a film in today's generation his decision or his budget. That's true. He's very, he's got a very hick trailer park trash 70s Texas Chainsaw vibe to most of his movies. It's just what he likes to make. Look at the guy himself. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I'm not saying he's a evil person and he should be condemned by society. I'm not saying that at all. But when you look at Rob Zombie, the kind of guy he is, it's not like Spielberg making those kind of movies. He makes what he knows, what he feels comfortable with, what he identifies with, what he, there's a lot of who he I don't know. I agree. I don't watch a lot of his movies, but I do agree that most of his movies have that hick trailer trash angle to it. That is true. The evidence is there. Let me see here. Maggie Hamby says, I like your videos. Thank you for sending them for me. You mean like doing them, because at first I was like, I sent them to. Oh, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. You're more than. Thank you for contributing and being part of the community and watching. I really do. I really do appreciate it. Okay, we'll go for a couple more minutes here. Let's see if did I miss any super chats. I don't think I did. No. So we'll just go for a couple more minutes here, and then I will let you guys go for the weekend and see you guys Sunday night. Don't forget Sunday night, because Sunday is the 35th anniversary. Sunday night, Tony and I are watching the Goonies on Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. Justin Simonson follows up and says, for a dream project, would you want to shoot on 35 millimeter or digital if you had any budget you wanted? Absolutely. Well, I mean, shooting It's Me, Billy. If we can raise the money we want to raise, there is a high probability that we will shoot on 35. Not film, it'll be digital, but we'll either shoot on the ARRI or the Red, if we're able to shoot that. If we raise the budget we need to, but we want to sort of, okay, you know what, instead of shooting on, because to rent an ARRI package, would probably be over $1,000 a day. So you're looking at probably about $10,000, give or take, just for the camera package for a week. That's ballpark. Okay, could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less, depending on what you rent, right? Whether it's the Red, whether it's the Red Mini, whether it's the ARRI. It could be the ARRI Alexa, which is an older one. They shot the Avengers on the ARRI Alexa. That might be a little cheaper for us because it's an older model, but it's still probably going to be like, it's probably still going to be like $1,000 a day, So, I mean, and that's 35 mil. Now, there are cinema cameras that shoot, that have a super 35 millimeter sensor, whether it's the Canon line, the Canon C300, whether it's the Panasonic Ava 1, I think. There's a lot of, we're not shooting It's Me, Billy on a DSLR. We are shooting it on, at the very least, would be one of the cinema cameras that you would buy on the Canon line or something like that. That would be the very least we would shoot on. But our goal is to raise the budget and then some. And that's another thing that would go. If we raise 55,000 US, then we'd be looking at, oh my God, okay, not only can we shoot for an extra 2 days, we can now go get the ARRI Alexa package. You know what I mean? And great, done. And we have a DP in Greg Bennett who has shot on all of the above. He's the top of his game. He's a 2-time CSC, Canadian Society of Cinematographers, award nominee. I mean, he can shoot on the ARRI, he can shoot on the Red, he can shoot on a DSLR, if we needed him to. He can shoot on everything. So it's one of the reasons why we hired Greg, is because he's a pro DP. And so yes, I mean, that is a distinct possibility that if we can raise our budget and then some, we will shoot on the ARRI or probably the ARRI over the Red, because I'm on a PC, not a Mac. And depending on what the native file format is that the Red saves as, can be a bit tricky. I do know that some people if you shoot on the ARRI, it's more, in my understanding, it's a little more compatible for me as the editor. So it will probably would lean more towards an ARRI package. But we'll see. I mean, if we don't have the money, we can't do that. You know what I mean? I mean, but that goes to show, imagine that. So think about that, right? Could cost us $1,000 a day to shoot at a particular location. Could cost us $1,000 a day to rent a camera package. Well, that's like $17,000 just in your location and camera package. Now, again, I'm not saying that is what it's going to cost us. I'm just saying that this is what we think about. This is the realities of the shoot. It's like, wow, okay. You know what I mean? Like, this is what that doesn't factor in insurance or, food, in-craft services, and other equipment, rental, lighting and grip, crew. I mean, it's not just me, Bruce. It's not just myself and Bruce. We're going to have a crew of probably about 15 or 20 people. So I mean, that's what I'm talking about. So it's not like we're arbitrarily saying, oh, we think we need that much. No. We've broken everything down, and we look at, to achieve this this is what we need. To achieve this vision, this is what we need. And if we can get a little bit more, that only helps, right? So, yes, shooting on 35 millimeter on professional motion picture cameras is definitely in the realm of possibility if we can raise that money, because that is what we want to do, because we got a DP that not only can do it, but would want to do it. And then you would achieve a production value on It's Me, Billy, that is, totally pro. Robert Thidoff says, Dave, would you like to see another Terry Fox movie based on the Great Canadian Runner? Terry Fox, that's right. They did a TV movie in the early 80s. Yeah, they did one in the 90s, I think, too, or early 2000s. I'd be down for that. For those of you that don't know who Terry Fox is, he was a young 21 or 2-year-old guy here in Canada who in the early 80s attempted to run across Canada on one leg. He lost his leg to cancer. He lost one leg to cancer. I think it was his left leg he lost. And he attempted to run from the east coast of Canada to the west coast in the name of cancer research, to fight cancer. And he made it from the East Coast. He didn't make it. He made it about at least half the way. He ran a marathon every single day for how long? Was it like every single day it was insane. Just Google Terry Fox. His story is inspiring. His story is amazing. Unfortunately, I commend the idea of what he was doing, and he brought so much awareness, and it was amazing. But it probably wasn't the best thing for him to do, because his cancer came back and he had to stop the race prematurely, and he sadly died. He died at the age of about 21 or 22. But his story is amazing, and his story is ripe for a Hollywood level movie. You know what I mean? Oh, absolutely. So for those of you that don't know who Terry Fox is, a lot of Americans do know, because it did cross borders, because it's just one of those stories. But there's still a lot of people that don't know about it. So take a look and see, because it's really, really, really cool. I'd be totally down for it. Totally down for it. Maggie Hamby. Maggie Hamby, don't give out that information here. Maggie, thank you, Frank, for taking that. See, I got great moderators, man. Thank you, Frank, for tackling that as quickly as you did. I really appreciate that. I don't know if Maggie is somebody who... I don't know if the account from Maggie Hamby is a troll account, or if it is somebody that maybe is not, cognitively aware that they shouldn't be doing this. But Maggie, I never do that. Never put that information in the chat room. Okay. Thank you, Frank. And thank you for putting, thank you for doing that. Yeah. Maggie, you're more than welcome to be here. You're more than welcome to be a part of it, but never put personal information out in the chat. Okay. Tom Ungurian, I think that's right. Dave, you hear about the Halloween script where Myers throws a decapitated head at some badass kid trick-or-treating? No, what was that? What was that? What was that for? Was that some I don't know. Is that like an official thing, or I don't know? Okay, 2 more minutes, folks. 2 more minutes, then we'll call it a day. 2 more minutes, and we'll call it a day. Johnny T says, would an angel investor who contributes majority or most of the budget have any say in the film? No, that's not how. That's not how usually these fan film campaigns go. We would not want to relinquish creative control that way. Certainly that's, an angel investor would be contributing under the guise of that they are an angel investor. I'm contributing. I believe in you. I believe in you that you can take this to where you need it to be. And, this is my contribution to that. You know what I mean? Now, if it's somebody that works in the film industry and that wants to, maybe have a bit of information or something, that's something that can be discussed. But certainly we are not looking to relinquish creative control that way or bring any outside people in on a creative level. Now, we do, There will be a producer package, an executive producer package in the Indiegogo campaign. That's not a spoiler. That's pretty, that's pretty standard when it comes to fan films and films in general that are not even fan films. But we are not looking to relinquish creative control in that way. But of course, you will be credited as such. You will have your name in the credits and the special thanks under executive producer and producer, because you are helping to bring this movie to life. Every single person that contributes to the campaign will have their name in the end credits under special thanks. Jesus, if we get 1,000 people, that's going to be 1,000. That's going to be a long day where we're just sitting there typing those names in. You know what I mean? We'd probably do it over a course of a couple of days, take breaks and things like that. But we do it. I mean, if we're able to raise the money, we'll do it. We'll sit there and put everybody's name in, and so it's something that we're not looking to relinquish control that way. There's an understanding there. But certainly if an angel investor wants to, Jesus, if there's somebody that's extremely wealthy, that's like, well, I got 25 grand to burn. There you go. There's 25 up front, or there's 10 up front, or there's 5 up front, or whatever however the amount is, right? We're incredibly grateful and thankful. We are thankful to no matter how much a person contributes, whether it's, $5 or whether it's, $5,000. It doesn't matter. Every little bit helps. Every little bit helps, And it's funny. I mean, obviously this is not likely to happen, but I have 21.2 thousand subs. If 21.2 thousand subs each contributed $5, we'd be there, right? That's not likely to happen because there's probably some dead accounts in there. There's probably people that don't watch me anymore, but are still subscribed, things like that, right? But it is possible. It is possible. But yeah, that's funny. Yeah, but of course, I mean, if an angel investor wants to contribute, of course, we're appreciative of that. Absolutely. But no, we're not looking to give up control or take outside say on that. Let me see here. Scrolling. Okay. All right. You know what? 3 more minutes. We'll take this to an hour and 45 minutes. What the hell? All right. Make sure I didn't miss any super chats. I did not. Okay, good. Just making sure. Naji, is it Naji? Naji? Can't wait to see what you do with your Black Christmas fan film. I love theater, the mind, and atmosphere. We can't wait either, man. We can't wait either. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a lot of hard work. But I'm telling you, if we got the budget, then it obviously will make things a lot easier. H2 Finest says, in one of the latest scripts written for a Friday 13th reboot, it has Pamela, Jason, and Elias, Jason's father, was that his name? All as killers at different points of the movie, not together. Really? I didn't hear about that. That's really interesting and fascinating. I had not heard about that. Interesting stuff indeed. Crystal Lake Counselor 1977 says, Dave, how in depth does one need to go in the original Black Christmas to understand your film? I don't even think you need to see the original Black Christmas to understand It's Me, Billy, although it will help. I mean, obviously, in the film, naturally, there's a level of recap. There's a level of dialogue and things that are being said that would not make sense to you. I mean, you can intellectualize what's being said and you can fill in the blanks, but certainly if you've seen the original film, it will only enrich your experience in watching It's Me, Billy. Of course, the original from 1974. Because, Victoria Miro, who is playing Sam in our film, is the granddaughter of Jess Bradford from the original film. So naturally, if you see the original, it would only help to enrich that experience of watching her. So I don't think it's necessary, but I think it's sort of in the same line of Halloween 1978 and Halloween 2018. You don't have to have ever seen the original Halloween film to get the 2018 film, but it will only enrich your experience if you do so. Alexander Dirksen says, Dave, did you give your script for your paranormal film to any big studio, A24 or Blumhouse? No, I haven't, because I don't want to relinquish creative control. They wouldn't hire me to make it because I don't have the level. I don't have the portfolio as a filmmaker for them to, trust me with a $5 million budget. So it's not something that I'm willing to sell. It's a personal piece. It's something that I hope to direct one day and retain some sort of level of creative control. So it's not something that I've done. No. Fandom Empire is here. How you doing, Fandom Empire? Sean over at Fandom Empire. Great guy. Great guy. Love the guy. He's tremendous. Love what he's doing over there. It's amazing. Final one, and I'm out of here for the weekend. Drive-in movie fan. Yay or nay, Chris? Yay or nay? Cheers, Dave, and have a good weekend. I love drive-in movies. Yes, absolutely. Oh, yeah. They're very niche and, of course, very shticky nowadays, but I wouldn't want to go to the drive-in to see a movie all the time. I mean, I wouldn't want that to be just how we watch movies out of the house. I think it's a niche experience, and I think it can be a fun experience every now and then. Like maybe you go to maybe I would go to the drive-in once at the beginning of the summer and then maybe once at the end of the summer to sort of like cap things off or something, But I wouldn't necessarily want that to be the movie-going experience. No, I think it's just, I wouldn't want that to be it. But certainly it's fun. It's fun for sure. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me on episode 65 of MCRAE Live. I want to thank my moderators, Jason Nike, Frank Riker, Tabitha Short, and Darren Sands, who, of course, have kept the chat moving. And thank you again, Frank, for doing what you did there with Maggie Hamby or whatever it is. I really appreciate that. My moderators are on top of things. Amazing stuff. Thank you to all the super chats that came in as well. I really appreciate it. It does not go unnoticed. Thank you to the non-super chats, the people just talking amongst each other and just, talking Friday the 13th and everything going on. And hey, if you're watching after the fact, comment below and let me know your thoughts. How would you handle rebooting Friday the 13th? I want to know. Comment below and let me know. And don't forget, Sunday night, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Tony Michael watching The Goonies on its 35th year anniversary. Really appreciate that. Before I go to the Patreon card here, I'm going to go to the 30-second It's Me, Billy, Indiegogo teaser before the teaser, I guess, is what it is. So here you go. Hey, guys, have a great rest of your weekend. And in the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you guys soon. All righty. Cheers.